Have you ever walked by a burning building? You know, the kids are on fire, the dog is on fire, and just watched and thought to yourself, I wonder how I could use this to my own benefit. If you haven't, then you probably aren't a politician. It probably sounds very Machiavellian, very outright evil to say, but it is true that crisis means opportunity. During a crisis, people are not rational actors. They are willing to do anything, however desperate, in order for the crisis to be resolved if the crisis is horrible and scary enough. 20 years ago was 9/11, and with 9/11, Americans learned the threat of terrorism. America was in a terrorism crisis. All America knew was that it wanted revenge for those lives which were lost at 9/11, and that we were scared, terrified of a 9/11 2 happening, and we needed the threat of terrorism to be destroyed utterly. And because of this, Americans did not question the wars or why they were started. We did not question the new federal overreach, the new infringements upon our liberties, because we were doing it to remedy a crisis. We were doing it for our safety, to survive. And in that moment, because of the crisis, because of the fear and panic of the American people, the US government had a blank check. They could do anything they wanted, as long as at the end of the press briefing they told people that this was to stop terrorism. And the federal government was happy, their corporate sponsors were happy, and the foreign influencers, they certainly were happy. And 20 years later, we still have the NSA reading our emails. We still are fighting benefactor wars in the Middle East on behalf of Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. Because, like opening your door to a vampire, liberties which are given away to end a crisis are never returned. And almost 20 years to the day from 9/11, we have Biden threatening governors and average Americans alike, saying that if they do not do enough to stop the crisis of coronavirus, that he will be forced to make more federal overreach in order to mandate vaccines to all. If you think this crisis is ever going to end, you are on glue. America and the world in general has entered into the time of the eternal crisis. Western enlightened democracy is in its final stage, one where the population, the people, is being completely and utterly controlled and led into a shadow tyranny by the super wealthy global elite. Any excuse for a crisis, no matter how bland, how mundane, or how non-essential it is going to be blown up by the corporate media to push the corporate politicians' narratives in order to create absolute panic and terror in the people, to the point where they are willing to accept pretty much anything. The crisis of the pandemic, the crisis of white supremacy, the crisis of climate. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking this libertarian stance that it's your God-given right to throw your Happy Meal into Niagara Fall if you want to. I love the environment, and I think that people who litter should probably get shot by a firing squad. But by using crisis as the justification, the government can achieve whatever it wants. And as Biden announced just the other day, in order to fight the crisis of the pandemic, in order to end it once and for all so we can all just go back to normal, we need to take care of these pesky governors who are putting their constituents in danger, who are threatening the lives of the people of America and perpetuating the pandemic by not mandating vaccines and by blocking Biden's attempt to do so. So therefore, the president needs the ability to thwart and go around governors to destroy the power of the states in order to end the pandemic. This isn't even baseless speculation as to their motives. In the 2020 World Economic Forum meeting, we have global elites openly saying this exact same thing. The crisis is the greatest opportunity to enforce our will upon the people. And why would it not be their modus operandi? If you suddenly found that every time a house catches on fire, you benefit immensely, would you not start lighting houses on fire? So there is no return to normal. There is no end of the pandemic. There is no end of climate change. There is no end of systemic racism in America. All of these things and all of these crises can be used to terrify the population and to create pariahs where need be. They can be used to further federal overreach. And most importantly, to further the agenda of a super rich global elite class. For decades, these super wealthy globalists have controlled politics. They have done so from the shadows. They have rigged capitalism in their favor so that they always win. And so whenever they lose, it is the taxpayer who will bail them out. But this is no longer sufficient. We will return to normal sometime, sure. But it will only be when they have won. It will only be when you are owned, when you are a slave.